Hey friends, Stephanie here with the Aeroponic Tower channel. Today we're gonna grow some peppers. I started these peppers a while ago. Peppers can be slow, so definitely stay on top of planting your pepper seeds if you wanna have peppers full time. I say about every 3 months or every quarter I start new pepper seeds, and I try to just mix up the varieties. I will put a list below in the description of all the varieties of pepper seeds I chose, as well as a link to this provider. I went with Pepper Joe's. He's the pepper expert. Pepper Joe's has an entire store full of pepper plants and seems to be the pepper expert, so thought it'd be super fun to give his seeds a try. Now some of these much taller than others. That is due to the varieties. I have some large sweet peppers. We're gonna be growing some chili peppers, and we're gonna be growing some hot peppers. And we are gonna grow all of these indoors. So when the seasons change and the towers go outside, I will be keeping my flex tower indoors with a light kit on it, specifically for my peppers. I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. One, there's a few things I really enjoy growing indoors, and peppers are one of them. Two, it's something that is reproducible. Some things are harder to grow inside, and some things I don't recommend newbies, someone who's new to tower gardening, to try. Things like squash, cucumbers. These are more difficult plants to grow. We can definitely grow them indoors, but you have to have a little bit more gardening experience to understand how to troubleshoot and manage those plants. Peppers, that's not the case. They do amazing inside. I actually think they thrive and produce better indoors sometimes than outside in our particular climate. And we can also grow them out of season. If I'm growing peppers outdoors, I'm relying on the seasons to make sure they're fruiting and blooming right. Indoors, I get to control that environment, and I can grow them in February when peppers shouldn't be growing. I currently have several different varieties of peppers growing. I have some bell peppers that are producing fruit. I have some little hot peppers, and I'm excited to add these to the mix. Now, before we get started, I have to show you what I did so we can get these ready to go into the tower. All right, so we need to do a little prep work, and here's one of my immunity shots. If you watched my last video, I made these. I have been enjoying these thoroughly. I just grab one every day. Makes for a nice immunity boost. I know what peppers I'm growing because I'm tracking them in my tower garden journal. If you want to master interval planting, you need to be documenting when you plant, how long things take, because here, this pepper plant is going to be very different than this pepper plant. Every plant is individual. Every plant is going to thrive differently depending on the time of year you grow it and how you grow it and where you grow it. This is designed for you to keep track of all of that information so that you know you need to be starting that particular plant's seeds every so many months so that you don't have gaps in your diet. Something I'm really working hard on, and why I created this. For example, right now I have loads of tomatoes, but none of them are ripe. And it doesn't help me if they're not ripe when I want to add a tomato to our diet, it allows me, I can do so much more with meals if I have varieties of food to get off my towers. And so I am tracking all of that. This is a PDF download. And if you buy my Tower Garden Ultimate Guide Tower Gardening book, then you can add this on for just $9.99. That is the best deal ever. So definitely grab this. You will have to have it printed, but it just has an abundance of pages in here to track all of the things. We've got our daily tasks, our harvest tracker, monthly to-do list. Want to know exactly, like see some of the pages in this and exactly how I use it, make sure to head over to my Instagram. I have a highlight bubble on this journal where I walk through specifically how I write things in so that I'm tracking my gardens. So we always want to have fresh food. What I'm doing on this channel, we live a simple lifestyle in a small cabin, and I grow the majority of our own food, and I'm working to make that even more. Every year, the goal is more and more and more, because the more we grow, the more we eat, the more we stay out of the grocery stores, and the less toxins and preservatives and bad things we're adding into our diets. So with these, I planted 2 seeds per rock wool with many of them. Now, not all of them came up. This one only has 1. The reason I did that is because I wanted to make sure I got every single pepper in the varieties I wanted to grow. And a couple of them already went in the towers somewhere. I don't really remember. I honestly don't really remember where I put them. I've been trying to remember, but I'm gonna go on a hunt for those. But a couple of them went in already. And I just wanted to make sure that I was able to get every variety that I wanted to grow. So most of these have 2. And I need to take these apart because I don't want to do 2 pepper plants per rock wool. A pepper plant can get pretty big. Some of these are small, but we want them, some things I do double up on, like my tomatoes. I've been growing them 2 plants per rock wool. But it's because they're hanging basket varieties and I thought they could handle it, and they have been able to handle it. With the peppers, I don't want them to have that competition. I want them to have their own space. So I'm taking a rock wool and getting it wet and splitting it open. And now I'm just going to carefully open up my plant here. And I removed it. Did some of the roots rip off of the other one? Probably. Did I leave some roots behind? Probably. Some plants can handle this. Some things cannot. A pepper can handle it, so I'm not super worried about it. Now, this is not going to be super stable for a while, so we need to get this into a rock wool as soon as possible. I'm just going to continue to do this with any of them that have 2. It's in my journal. I don't really care what they are right now. I care once they start blooming, and once they start blooming, because I've tracked them in my journal, I'll be able to go look and know exactly what they are. You can label these and keep them labeled in your tower. It's just preference. I know I also have a lot of experience gardening. I've been gardening for 20 years. So I can tell the difference between like a sweet pepper and a hot pepper and a chili pepper once they start to establish their leaves and their plant structure, and just now looking at them actually based on the size. So, you know, it's just kind of up to you if that's important information that you really want to know before they start fruiting. Definitely take notes in your journal. I have a seed starting guide in there, and then you can put little tabs on them in your tower when you get to that point. Okay, most of these have 2, which is great. Oh no, I took a leaf. Oh well. Okay, this one I just ripped right in half, so each one has a half a rock wool. So we'll just, I think there's a ladybug in my hair. Yep. So we're just gonna add a half a rock wool to each one of those. Another way to do it. I learned some really interesting information while I'm doing this. I wanted to share. Tim Blank, who is like the creator of Tower Garden, I forget his official title, Chief of Operations with Tower Garden, the top guy with Tower Garden as far as knowing how to use these. I heard him speak the other day. We were on a training together. I was covering the online business side of growing your business online, and he was the, of course, Tower Garden expert for growing on the towers. And he was talking about the nutrients and how I tend to go heavy-handed with my nutrients, and it was really eye-opening because he was saying that plants are really smart and they don't need excess nutrients. Like, we live in a more is better culture. I'm guilty of that. And that's why Tower Garden will recommend, if you're in a hot region, to use half-strength nutrients. And he was saying, like, even if you, I think his story was that he ran out of tower minerals at one point and was growing lettuce with just a couple of teaspoons that was left over. And it was still growing amazing lettuce. So I just wanted to plug that because I tend to be a more is better person, but we can save money by cutting back on these. And so if you're growing out in a really hot region and you want to save some money on minerals, or in the summertime, you can cut back on those nutrients. And then he was just explaining like the purity of the minerals and the quality. And if you're getting minerals, it's really important to know where they're coming from, because we don't want to be getting minerals from overseas where they are laden with heavy metals and toxins. So I just found that really interesting. So less is more. I'm going to be trying that this summer. I'm going to be seeing if I can do some half nutrient solution for some of my plants. I'm playing around with those numbers a little bit, and I'll be tracking it in my journal. I'm really curious to see if like tomatoes actually do better with less nutrients, because sometimes when you give too many nutrients, you're going to get big leaves and less smaller fruit, because the energy is just going into the plant and making this big plant. And sometimes when you cut back on things, you can encourage them to fruit earlier and produce larger fruit without as much plant abundance to them. That's sort of a gardening hack in the soil gardening world. So I'm going to play with that this summer. I just found that to be really interesting information. If you ever want to know about those training calls, they are great. Reach out, and I will put a link below on how you could get added to my email list, and I will send that information out, especially the ones I teach and speak at. I'm also going to be doing lives on YouTube on a frequent basis on a set time, and those times will be announced in my email list. So make sure to join my email list so you know when I'm doing a live. It is the most organic and best time for me to answer your questions on growing this way. You do those strength personality tests. I had to do several when I was in the business world, and it always came up that my gifting is in strategy and problem solving. And so I love to answer your questions when you are struggling with something, because I can often think outside the box with solutions. I'm not bound to directions on anything. I just have 20 years of experience gardening, and that applied to the gift of maybe being a little bit creative minded and thinking outside the box helps me to be a great problem solver so that we have excellent food. I also have some testimonies on my Instagram highlights I've been adding from some of you guys who have had success. And what tends to happen, and if you are new to aeroponic tower gardening, know that this is normal. There is a very slow beginning. When you're starting seeds from scratch, some of this stuff takes a really long time, and we're so used to rushing off to the grocery store, getting things instantly, and we're not connected to our food. And so we've kind of lost that understanding of how long some things can take. Now I have some tricks for how to get food fast. Make sure to go back and watch my previous videos if you want to learn how I do that. I grow a lot of things really quickly, so we always have food on the table, but some of these things take a really long time, and when you're setting up your first tower, it can feel like forever, because it's actually months before you're going to go from seed to harvest of a large plant. Now again, I'll put a link below to a reel I did on how to start baby greens really quickly. I love to teach that method to new customers and those of you new to tower gardening, because it gets food on the table very quickly. So make sure to go into the description and watch that, and it'll show you how to plant baby greens so that you are harvesting in just a few weeks. But it takes a while, and then there can be struggles, because it's a learning curve. Learning how to start your own seeds and understanding how to do this can take a minute to learn. And so I've got some testimonies of customers who like worked their way through that. They didn't give up. They continued when they had failures. They tried again, and they followed my methods, and were able to say, oh my gosh, your methods really work. So super excited about that. Thank you, friends, for sharing your testimonies too, and for hanging in there and going the distance. Because I talked to a loved one the other day, and she was saying she's not growing, and I was like, it's because you're not growing. If you're not growing, you can't be growing food, right? We have to do the work, and gardening is work. Like, this is still a process that requires a skill that you're going to have to learn, and I'm trying in my video content is to lessen that learning curve for you, but there's still a learning curve and there's still work. But this is by far way easier than any soil gardening I've ever done in my 20 years of growing food. So I can say that with confidence. Okay, so we are good. Let's get our tower set up, and we're gonna put these in. When growing peppers, I like to use my oldest ones. that are broken. The reason is you're not gonna get your peppers, you're not gonna get this net pot back after you grow peppers on them because the roots are so complex and large. So I use all the broken ones up. It's a good opportunity to use those, save your new ones for something else. Also, you can use clips, but I have found with clips that this allows the root right at the base to get really large inside the tower instead of controlling it like this one, and then they get long and you can't get them out very easily. You have to take the tower apart. So these are best, and use your old ones. I have 19 peppers. And I have 28 grow spots. So I have peppers in a couple of different spots, but I actually don't want to mess with those. I want to stick to these. So what I'm going to do is put these in strategically. I'm going to alternate the large ones towards the bottom, working our way up to the smaller ones up top, because what you don't want is a pepper plant right at the top and then it grows another 2 feet. Some of these are going to stay at a foot. Some of them will get up to 2.5 feet and produce a really large pepper. So let's start with the larger ones. We're gonna go from big to small as we go up. And I might even leave the top completely empty for growing some lettuce or something really fast that we can turn over, so that we're just continuing to have extra food on this. Since I only have 19, I really wanted 28. Okay, I'm gonna be starting peppers and growing outside too, because I wanna do some comparisons. I found this gorgeous pepper growing here for about the last 6 weeks and it's just super beautiful. I'm gonna move this one in. And then I realized I have some basil that needs a home that's getting shaded out. So I think we're gonna do basil at the top. These would be a great companion. So let's get planting. These taller ones are gonna be our larger variety, so they're going on the bottom. What I like to do is alternate. And here, so I'm gonna put a larger one here. This is as high as I'm gonna go with these larger varieties. And if you're interested in learning more about the towers and these are new to you, I have a free ebook that explains everything about them, what they're made of, how they are a safe material for growing food. They will last a lifetime, which is so amazing because so much money was invested into my soil gardens that I have nothing to show for it. And I just really appreciate the longevity of these. And there is a link to purchase if you're interested in grabbing your own towers. We live in a time where food at the grocery store is overpriced and the quality continues to deteriorate. And that is what led me to this way of growing and just my passion for sharing that with you guys. Okay, so if you buy one of these flex systems, it's actually only this tall, and then you put the shower cap on. This is an extension. So I had 20 pepper plants in the standard as it comes flex. I always recommend buying the extension kit. Might as well. It's more food. We're already running power. The power is minimal, but we're already running power and nutrients. We might as well get the most out of these. So let's add some things to the top. Here are my basil plants that I mentioned. I often say wait a little bit longer to get your basil plants in. These are quite young, so I'm gonna pull them up. Matter of fact, my grow station is also really full right now, and I don't know, I just want to get these in. So I'm going to put a little piece of rock wool in here. What that's going to do is lift this up out of that grow port a little bit so that I have a nice distance and we're not going to get too saturated. I'm going to do it with this one as well. So if you ever have like leftover rock wool scraps, this is a good hack. All right, we got 4 basil in there. This one's super teeny tiny. I'm gonna put that back in the grow station. Yeah, this is some baby greens I heavily seeded. I'm gonna go ahead and add these to the top. These are smaller than I would typically put my food in. So I am also going to kind of make sure they're propped up out of here. But I also want to get this tower full, and these will be fine. They're durable. We'll just leave them hanging out just a little bit. All right. And what an abundance of food we're gonna have off this one tower. I'll be able to turn over this top row with fast foods like baby greens. We'll have an abundance of basil to harvest for quite some time. While we wait on our peppers, and then eventually we will have a collection of sweet to spicy peppers to harvest from. Do all kinds of things with. Now I'm in a garage, so I can bring a hose in. If you can't, you could just fill this up with buckets of water. Just use clean water. And this tank has a hole somewhere. Oh, right here. To put our plug through. And what's inside of this is just a very simple pump and a tube that feeds into the bottom of this tower. It's pushing water up through the top where it's gonna rain into the shower cap and drip back. This up. For the nutrients, I have a measuring cup and we need 400 milliliters. Of both A and B. Okay, and everything's made super simple with these. So we just need our timer here. You can plug in 2 per timer. So a lot of times I buy the family kits where you get 3 flex towers and 2 timers, and that works out great, saves money. And then we're just gonna set it. There's a button here, you can hit 1. Once gives you the number 1. Some people say it's I for indoor, maybe it is, I don't know. I think it's a 1. The other one's an O or a 0, and that's for outdoor growing. It's all in my free ebook if you want to download that. Talk about all the specifics. So this is it. Just gonna plug this in as soon as this is full, and then we'll put our light kit on, and we're ready to go. We're growing peppers. All right, guys, I'm not gonna put the light kit on just yet. I'm filming how to put that together for another video. If you wanna see that, make sure to subscribe and you can check that out. I also showed it in my recent video where I put lights on this tower. Super simple, everything's on a timer. It's the reason I fell in love with these towers. They'll last a lifetime. They're made out of products that aren't leaching chemicals into the water. You're not having to buy soil and compost and amendments and shovel things. I get to be in the comfort of my garage while it's freezing outside, growing peppers year-round. This video will be under the pepper playlist if you want to see how they turn out as they begin to grow and fruit. See you on the next video.